My name is Leslie. I am from originally New York City, but live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm 52 years old. I grew up in a family that both my parents were alcoholics. Grew up in an abusive home where they both would fight on a regular basis, and I knew that my mom was a Christian. She just grew up in the church and grew up in a Baptist church, but never wanted to really follow God. And she was an abused and battered woman for many years. And my father left her when I was very young. I was about 12 years old. And she ended up having to take care of me and my brother on her own after that. We lived in a very nice neighborhood. I ended up living in New Jersey in the beginning and in a suburb, and had a really good life. We later moved to New York City and ended up with my mom, who would put us in television commercials, and she was in the music business and really supported me and my brother in that aspect. She began to manage us and really show us what life was about. But what I did learn is that there were a lot of bad things that happened. Living that kind of lifestyle with being in recording studios and around people that were in the industry, it brought drugs in, it brought molestation in. My mother's connection to God at that time went away. She actually began to follow Islam and was very into Farrakhan and things like that in New York City. But my brother and I continued on, but both of us developed the same problem she had. She became more addicted to alcohol and some drugs, and introduced me to cocaine at the time. And I knew that I didn't want that for my life. I broke away from the family, and then eventually I went to college and put myself through college and took myself out of the industry because I saw that that was pulling me down, and I really wanted an education. So I focused in on that and ended up going to school and going into marketing and advertising. I spent the past 25 years of my life in advertising and marketing for television and radio and print. After my mother had introduced me to cocaine and being in recording studios, I wanted a different life for myself. She also raised me and my brother to be pretty much con artists, like manipulation, like the ups and downs of the industry. You can't raise two children like that. So the ups and downs of the industry afforded her the time to be able to con people out of money, and they assumed we had money, so therefore that's what she did. She's no longer with us. I lost my mother in 1997. I can celebrate her life today. I miss her very much. She had a lot to give. She also gave me the gift she had, which was to be able to talk, but I wanted to use it for good. So that's when I entered the sales and marketing industry in advertising for TV and radio, and I spent a lot of years doing that. There were times when that industry also pulled me in, and I went back to cocaine after having not touched it for years. In the middle and at the height of my career in Miami, Florida, it was then that I met Jesus Christ. I got arrested in Miami. I was addicted to cocaine. I was probably the most successful I've ever been. And at that moment, in a jail cell, I had nothing. I had left a penthouse, a wonderful life with, living on the ocean. And now I was in a jail cell with no shoes on. But all I could hear, and I had never known him, was God say, "Do I have your attention now?" And I left everything behind. I lost everything. And that was the beginning of the ups and downs and the do-overs that I was about to get in life. But when I met Jesus in that jail cell, and he told me that anything is possible if you believe. Just believe. And I knew at that moment that I had no children. I had lived this crazy rock star lifestyle again. I just repeated what my mother had taught me. I didn't know any better. I went to Miami Beach and lived that way. And there came the cocaine again. And now I'm sitting in jail with these charges and had never been arrested in my life. So I proceeded to learn the Bible. You know, there was another inmate that was there, and she said, you know, if you just go into this Bible study, we're going to go to Bible study today, and you should come in there and see what it's about. And I go, well, I have nothing else. You know, I had no phone calls. I had no one to call. My mother had already passed. I had no one, but I did have God, and I didn't know how important that moment with Him. I would have dreams at night, and He would be there. And He would meet me there in my dreams and tell me things and guide me through the Word. I had no idea what it was about. I had met an officer in that jail, and she had told me, she said, I'm mad at you. And I said, why are you angry at me? She said, I'm very angry at you. And she said, you are, you know, not supposed to be here. Not supposed to be here. She said, you're a college educated woman and you got yourself into some trouble. You need to get out of here. And she said, I want you to go to your cell and I want you to take every version of the Bible you can find and look up every promise God ever made you. And I did. And what stuck with me the most, you know, was the word believe. And I stand on that. And after I got out of jail and I proceeded with my life and I said, you know what, God, I'm going to do things your way. I am going to get married. I didn't have, you know, a husband. I didn't have children. All I could feel was the loss of my mom, you know, and that I was alone in the world, and it felt like that. But I knew I had God now, and I prayed to Him, and I begged Him. I said, God, please don't let me stay in this cell and go to prison. You know, I don't have a family. I have no one. And He said, you have me, though. And I said, but what about children, you know? I had been through so much with that crazy lifestyle, you know, that today I have 2 beautiful children. You know, that's one of my tattoos too. But they're not my first children. You know, I had abortions before, and I had to give those things to God and own that, you know, but I love my children today. They're so special to me, and because I asked God, I said, could you forgive me in that jail cell? Would you forgive me and give me a family? And I asked Him for 2 children, and today they have biblical names. You know, my oldest is Malachi, which means messenger of God, and then my younger son is Joshua, who's a warrior, and both of them behave that way. You know, they are their actual biblical names. They wear them in their personality. But my love for God continued, and after I had the children, I went into ministry. I ended up at a really big church and learned about leadership and how important it was, and I love to serve the Lord. I know that He is with me. But I still had my struggles. I needed a lot of healing from what went on in my past, what had gone on with my mom. I was married now. I had a husband who also, we were both addicts. You know, we got married and had 2 children, and he struggled for a lot of years. I held on to my sobriety for 15 years during our marriage and raised our children. But he could not stay within the home with me and would continue to relapse. I actually had gone to my pastor one time and I said, I can't do this anymore. I've divorced my husband. And he said, why? You know, why would you do that? It's sickness and in health. It's, you know, I had to learn. He said, you made a covenant with God. Do you understand that? And so I did remarry my husband. We are still married today. We have a lot of work to do on our marriage. And I'm here today to tell you that I'm here at Abba House because I need to work on those things. And I was working full-time, I was in ministry full-time, and I had 2 children to raise with a husband that was absent most of the time. It took me back again to cocaine, where I found that I needed that comfort. And to, you know, I had relapsed in the past, but prior to knowing Jesus Christ, it was different. It was just very different. I had, you know, the knowledge, and I have the Holy Spirit inside of me, and to go against that. And some older people say, you backslid, you know. It's more than that. You know, I walked away from God, the God who was there in that jail cell 20 years ago that gave me beautiful children, gave me a husband, gave me a whole new life. And I just said, bye. You know, I've got it all together. I'm going to do this on my own. And I know today that I cannot do it on my own. You know, His word tells me that I'm the vine, you're the branches. You can do nothing without me. And I know that for sure. You know, so last year I came to Abba House, and I noticed that, you know, there was so much inside of me that still needed healing. Why would I continue to return to active addiction when I knew what it did to me? And now it was ruining me and my children. So I came to Abba House, and now I'm working on healing. My children are very proud of me today. They've gone through a lot over the years. They've had a very good life. We've gone through periods of having everything and then having absolutely nothing, where we ended up homeless. So I know that, you know, now that the tattoos that I have and what they represent, they mean everything to me. You know, I would never cover them up. I have love tattooed on my wrist that says that God is love. And love covers a multitude of sin. You know, all of the sin that I go through, I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. I can have it all and still have nothing, but I always, always will have God, and He'll always be there for me. What happened to get me to Abba House is I wanted to return to God. I was in jail. I had been arrested this summer, past summer of 2019, and right prior to that, the day of my relapse, my children noticed that I had relapsed again. I had been clean a year, and they said, we cannot do this again, Mom. They called the police, and actually the police came and took them away. That day was the worst day of my life. They put them into foster care in May of this year, and I never thought that would ever happen. We'd been through so much together. I just knew that this was the bottom for me. This is the bottom. And when they picked up the phone, they saved my life. But they did what I couldn't do for myself or couldn't do for them. And once they did that, they left the home, they took them away, and I really couldn't deal with them not being in the home. So I continued to use. I got pulled over. I was driving my car, and I got arrested for a warrant I had that I didn't even know I had in a whole nother county. I thought that was kind of strange. And that was only a month after my children had called the police. So I went to jail. I spent the entire summer, June, July, and August in jail. Right above my tattoos on my wrist, you can see where the handcuffs were. They marked my wrist. And those 3 months were very hard. I knew that I needed help. And for some reason, Abba House was not on the top of my list. I just kind of wanted to clean my mess up. You know, I wanted to just go do the quickie treatment. You know, let me do that and get my kids to come home. And so God had another plan. He had another plan for me, and I could hear Him saying, "No, I want you. I want you back. You have a vision for the future that I gave you to have your own ministry someday." And He said, "And I need to be with you. And I need you by yourself, and I need that time. Please give me that time." And Abba House was on my list at number 3 because I looked at the fact that it was a 15-month program, and I said, 15 months? How can I do that? when I told my children that, Mom was going to a 15-month program, they were like, great. I'm like, great? You're happy? He said, yes, Mommy, we're happy. We're happy. We believe in you. And now what's happened is they're not in foster care anymore. My in-laws have taken them in. They're in Miami, Florida. And with me being here, they are doing really well, really well. They're 14 and 16. And my boys are rooting me on, and that feels great. This current phase of the program that I'm in is still, I've been here now 4 months. It has been amazing. The healing that has taken place, the presence of the Lord, me getting that one-on-one time without having any distractions at all, and just surrender over again has been just amazing. I did rededicate my life. I was baptized again since I've been here, and have gotten back that relationship that I walked away from. I have Believe tattooed on my arm, and I also put that there because of the belief that God gave me from when I was in that jail. And he just told me that anything was possible if you believe, and that's Mark 9, and I stand on that. And it's such a powerful word, because I've heard a lot of people tell me, well, what's the biggest sin? A lot of people have that question, and look it up in the Bible, and all sins are equal. But there's one sin that's the biggest sin, and that's unbelief. And for me to doubt that God could do anything for me is where I don't want to be. I don't. So I have to remind myself. I tattooed around it, there are 7 stars, because 7 is a number of completion. And then I went on to tattoo on my wrist. I have my 2 children, Malachi and Joshua. And on the left inside of my wrist, I have love, because God is love. And I have to remember that love is the most important thing, and without it, I can just remember the scripture that says I'm a clanging cymbal or a gong, and I don't want to be that. I want other people to know, especially women, to know that, the one thing I can say is that I just keep getting back up, whether having a lot or having nothing at all. And learning to, like Paul says, learning to, that abase and abound, to learn to deal with having everything and learn to deal with having nothing. And being content, not only learning it, just being content in all situations is me. And the God that just lets you do it over and start over and beginning over and begin again is what, I believe everybody can do. You can start over. Sometimes I start my day over 20 times because I just wake up and it's not so great, it's ugly, but to lose everything and start over, and recognize in life that, that whatever platform you're on or whatever importance you think you have, and then it's gone overnight, you still have God, and that he's still there is what matters most. And I didn't think that for a long time. I did not. I was so caught up into what title I had and what I wore and what I drove, and then I go, God, Jesus, you were homeless, you rode a donkey. I'm good. I could do this, never settle, and always come back home. Just come back home. It's like being a child. You wander away, you run away from home, you go out in the street, you get beat up, and you're like, no, this is not it. I've got to come back home.